It's like putting on a pair of glasses almost. I'm going to set this back because I will trip over this. I'm going to apologize now for falling down at least once because I'm not that coordinated. I'm not going to send a text, I promise, but I want to read you something I just got from your pastor. It's John. I'm lifting you up as you minister this morning. Give the heart of Texas Cowboy Church my love. I miss them. But let them know also that I had a great opportunity to share God's love at the arena this morning. Good times at Buck and Stock and Bibles. People's lives are touched and changed. Tell them I love them. He loves you. And we're gonna be in Exodus this morning, and this has nothing to do with what I'm going to talk to you guys about, but I couldn't help think about this morning when we were in the back office and Chris was talking. Exodus is the first place in the Bible where the pastor, the leader of the flock, left the congregation to go do something that God had called him to do. And in that instance, the flock went nuts without their leader. Your leader loves you. Obviously, it's Jesus Christ. But he's put a shepherd over you, and that's Jeremy. And he's called your shepherd away this morning to go speak to some other people. Honor your father and your shepherd by staying true to your call and focused on your first love, which is Jesus Christ. I know that some of you may not know who I am if you're a guest or a visitor. My name is John Randolph. I typically am doing what these two are doing this morning, which is sing. And so there may be a concern that you're sitting there thinking, oh, great, the singer that's going to preach. I promise you there is something scarier than that. It is the preacher that tries to sing. Okay? So at least we don't have to deal with that. This morning, and I'm gonna go ahead and apologize now. Is there anybody in the room that is either self-diagnosed or clinically diagnosed OCD? If there is, okay, I'm gonna apologize to you guys right now because I have self-diagnosed ADD. I'm gonna be all over the place this morning. I'm gonna try to stay focused, and God just does the things that God does to me. This is all I can think about this morning as you guys are sitting here going through your prayer time. Acts 2:42. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship. You don't need to turn there. I'll just read it to you. This is the early church. This is a description of the early church, and this is what I could think of this morning as I sat here and listened to all of this. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and miraculous signs were done by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common, selling their possessions and goods. They gave to anyone that had a need, and every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes. They ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their numbers daily those who were being saved. That is a perfect picture of what I saw this morning. Give yourself a round of applause. Give God a round of applause. He's doing great works this morning. And through the body of your church. Thank you guys for allowing me to be here with you. I'm gonna try to stay as focused as I can. Jeremy said that he usually lets you guys out of here by 3 o'clock, so I'm gonna try to do a little bit better than that and get you out a little sooner. I grew up in South Texas, and every 5th Sunday at the Baptist church that I grew up in, I don't know if anybody knows where Kingsville is. Does anybody know where Kingsville is? That's where I grew up. So we were the largest Baptist church in town, And across on the other side of the tracks was the largest Black Baptist church. And every fifth Sunday, we would go over to their church and be a part of their service. And then the next fifth Sunday, they would come over to our church and be a part of our service. How many of you guys have ever been a part of a Black Baptist church service? Raise your hand. Okay, for those of you that have been a part of one, you know what I'm getting ready to say. Okay, if you're hungry, just go get some crackers, go get a donut, because we're going to be here for a little while, okay? Don't start looking at your watch. If you need to leave, and I'm being serious about this, if you need to leave, if you got some type of an engagement you got to get to, you're not going to hurt my feelings, okay? God has put something on my heart. Jeremy called me Wednesday and asked me if I would feel comfortable doing this. First of all, was I open? I was in Dallas last night. I'm part of an organization called the Gospel Music Artists Association, and I typically don't book a Sunday when I'm at their annual convention. So I was open, and again, God has a perfect plan. I was open this Sunday morning. Jeremy called me, and it is always a huge honor when a pastor allows me to stand in their pulpit. It's one thing to call somebody that sings and says, hey, can you come sing for us? It's a whole other thing when that pastor says, can you stand in my pulpit and deliver God's word for me? That is a very humbling honor. The wonderful thing about that call when I do get it is that I'm completely, totally unprepared, and so what you get is what's been on my heart and what God's been ringing me around for the last few days. So I've got some things I want to share with you, and so back to what I was saying, if you've got something that you've got to do, something you need to be at, I'm okay if you leave. I live in a house full of females, other than my lab. He and I are the only males in the house. So I'm used to being walked out on, told to be quiet, not listening, all of those things. But God forbid if I do any of that, right guys? So if you have somewhere to be, I'm cool with that. Don't worry about hurting my feelings, okay? My wife is my biggest cheerleader, if you want to call it that. God knows what we need as men. He knows if we need a cheerleader. He knows if we need a critic. He knows if we need somebody in our life that's going to build us up, or he knows if we need somebody that's going to carry around a baseball bat. My wife carries a baseball bat even though she doesn't realize that she does. She says things and doesn't realize what she's saying. And maybe that's the Aggie in her. She's got an undergrad and a master's degree from A&M, and there are things that come out of her mouth that I just scratch my head and wonder how she graduated. Things like, about a year ago, I was down in the Temple area, and I had a concert on a Thursday night, a concert on a Friday night. I had a concert Saturday morning at a men's ministry event. I had a concert Saturday night at a church, and then a Sunday morning service. So 5 services starting on Thursday night. Anytime we leave a service, my wife will spend the first 10 to 15 to 20 minutes in the car telling me all the things that I could have done better. And so we get in the car after this Sunday morning service, and she says, hey, I was noticing, and I said, stop, please, I'm full, okay? There's no more room here for you to put anything else into, so if you don't have anything nice to say right now, just please don't say anything. And she looked at me and she said, what are you talking about? I said, really? Are you serious? What am I talking about? Every time we get in the car, the first thing you do is point out the things I could have done better. And she said, that is not true. Every time we get in the car, I work really hard trying to think of at least one thing that you did right. I started laughing, and she said, what? I said, nothing. Don't worry about it. So, my critic's not here, but she's here with me in spirit. My family is at our home church this morning. We're going to be in Exodus, and we're going to talk about Moses, and it's amazing how some of the things that you guys talked about at the Cowgirl get-together and some of the things that we talked about this morning kind of weave into what God's been dealing with my heart about the last few weeks. I want to give you guys an idea of kind of where I've come from. I grew up South Texas. Had a great home life that I grew up in. My mom was the main discipler in our house. My parents are celebrating their 66th wedding anniversary next year. They dated for 2 weeks. They got married 2 weeks later. And as my dad says, they're still trying to see if it'll work out. When you look at the picture looks pretty good. The reality is that I'm no different than you guys. I've got struggles, I've got problems, I've got trials. I'm broken. I've done stupid things in my life. I've made decisions that I scratch my head and wonder, what were you thinking? But through it all, God has a way of weaving things together and taking what the enemy means for evil and turning it into good. There's so many times, though, in my life when God creates a situation where Jeremy Cannell calls and says, hey, I need to ask you a favor. What are you doing this Sunday? And my initial reaction is I want to jump and say, if I'm available, I can do it. But I kind of put the brakes on. It's a little hard at times, and I'll typically tell the pastor, let me pray about it and make sure this is what God has in store for me and for you and for your flock as well. And in that process, what typically goes through my mind is, you're not the right man for this job. People aren't going to listen to you. You're just a singer. You can't do this. You didn't go to college for this. Your past is pretty sketchy, and if they knew about it, they may not listen to you. If they knew the real you, if they knew what your house looked like sometimes, that you got obstinate, disobedient, ornery, pig-headed teenage girls, they might not listen to you. If they heard sometimes the way that you and your wife interact when you get short with each other, they may not listen to you. And over the years, I've studied God's Word, and there are a lot of people that I look at that give me encouragement to continue to fight the good fight. There's Peter. Peter and I have a lot in common. My dad used to tell me, son, you need to learn to engage your brain before you engage your mouth. That was Peter. I knew Peter really well. There's Abraham. This is a guy that got a very clear word from God on what God wanted him to do, but he doubted God's ability. And he constantly questioned. And he interceded and stepped in where he thought he should step in and make decisions for God. There's Samson. You look at a guy like Samson, and Samson is the perfect physical picture of what a man would look like. But that dude had some major issues when it came to fidelity and womanizing. There's David. We think of David, we think of this great king. We think of a man after what? God's own heart. David was a horrible father. Absolutely horrible father. But David spent as much time on his face as he did probably on his feet seeking God. But when it comes to self-doubt, when it comes to you're not qualified, when it comes to who do you think you are, I think of Moses. Because that guy's got it down when it comes to that. You didn't have to grow up in church to understand who Moses was and is. But let's talk just a little bit about Moses. He was picked to lead the nation of Israel out of Egypt. And when we think of Moses, we think of Charlton Heston or Christian Bale in the most recent movie. We think of these physical specimens, these tough guys. Because we believe that if God's going to pick a man like that to lead his chosen people out of captivity, he's got to pick a guy who's got it all together. He's got to pick a guy that is on his game, that's buff, that is a great speaker, a great leader, somebody that everyone else looks at and goes, that guy is our leader. But the reality is, when we look at God's Word, God very rarely ever picks the person that you and I would pick. So let's look at Moses' life over 80 years, just real quick. Moses was an Israelite. He was born in Egypt. Pharaoh signed an executive order saying every boy should be killed. He was sent down the river by his parents in Exodus 1. He was rescued by Pharaoh's daughter in Exodus 2. He was raised in the house of Pharaoh, so his grandfather was the king of Egypt. He lives like a prince. He's got a perfect life. But he kills an Egyptian slave, or he kills an Egyptian for beating a Hebrew slave. He was rejected by his people in Exodus 2. He ran away to the desert in Midian. He marries at the end of all the trials and tragedies he's going through, but while he's trying to figure out who he is, and he spends 40 years tending sheep. So if you think your life is on a roller coaster, if you think your life is a little jacked up, let's think about Moses. He starts out in a basket. He ends up a prince in the house of Pharaoh. Then he's a wanted man with a bounty on his head, serving as a shepherd in the desert with sheep. Can you imagine what was going on in his head? Can you imagine the doubt that he was dealing with? Since day one, since birth, he's been running. That's what he does. He's a runner. He's running from his oppressors. He's running from his past. He's running from his possible future. That's what he does. He runs. Does that sound familiar to anybody? How about identity crisis? His parents put him in a basket and sent him down the river. Tell me some psychologists wouldn't have some fun with that for a few sessions. His grandfather wants him dead. His own people look down their noses at him. They don't want anything to do with him. Does that sound familiar? In his mind, he has no one. No one at all. His adopted family wants nothing to do with him. The people of his ancestry, they despise him. Every time he goes by on a chariot, and he's clothed in beautiful robes, and he's fat and happy because he's eaten at the king's table. And on top of all of that, he's a boy. And so everyone's looking at him and saying, how come he gets to live and my son had to die? He has no one. Does that sound familiar? And now he sits in the desert and he's watching sheep. He's in hiding. And he's probably playing over and over and over again the things in his life that he has done that have led him to that point. I know I do that. Does that sound familiar to anybody? All the what ifs, all the should haves, all the could haves, all the ain't gots, all the blessings that somebody else got. Why me? Why me? He has been running and hiding his whole life. That sounds familiar to me. I can't speak for you guys, but that's been my life a lot. So here he is. It's a normal day. He's going out to work. He's got his staff. And he's walking around. Let's turn to Exodus 3. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush, and Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn. So Moses thought, I will go over and I will see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn. Let me give you my interpretation, because Moses is a guy. Okay? Guys love fire. We go camping, we get a little bit of food, we get a little bit of tent, we get a little bit of sleeping bag, we get a whole lot of wood, and we get a bunch of lighter fluid. We go camping every year with a bunch of people, and I'm not kidding you. If we bring two, we leave on Thursday, we camp out Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, 3 nights. I'm in charge of the fire. I love fire. I burned my bed up when I was a kid. I burned the house, part of it. I burned the fence, and I burned part of the field. I love me some fire. 4 bottles of lighter fluid. That's what I bring. My buddies, they each bring me 1 bottle each. There's 3 of us. I have 7 bottles of lighter fluid for the weekend, and they all get used. So let me tell you, in my interpretation, what happens here. Moses is tending the sheep, and he goes, fire. Fire. I must go see fire. He doesn't say, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. Moses goes, oh my gosh, that thing's been burning forever. And it's not burning up. I gotta go check this out. I gotta go see what this is. So let's read on. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And here's what I love about so many people that God's talked to in Scripture. Moses says, here I am. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I hear a voice and no one is around and it says, John, John, and I like to think I walk pretty close with my Father, I don't know if I would say, hey, I'm right here. And if you don't believe me, then you guys won't act the same way. When you guys do this camp out thing, you go put your mask on. And you go walk around to some tents and stuff, and you go, Chris. I don't think Chris is going to go, here I am. I think Chris is going to go, who's there? But there's so many times in Scripture that these people say, here I am. That tells me about their heart and their desire to seek God. Here I am. Do not come any closer, God says. Take off your sandals, for the place where you were standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt, and I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. So I've come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land into a good and spacious place, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now, go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Now, we go immediately from verse 10 to verse 11, but I got to believe right there Moses stops and says in his mind, whoa, you got the wrong guy. What are you talking about? Because he then says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Does that sound familiar to anybody? God has nudged you, God has pulled on you, God has pushed you. And you said, hey, I think you got the wrong guy. But God has a plan. And it's a perfect plan. But in this place is where all of his baggage comes up. I'm not good enough. I've got a past. I have a speech problem. I'm a murderer. And if I go back to Egypt, guess what? They're going to kill me. They hate me. In a nutshell, you got the wrong guy. And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Now here's what I love about that. In today's world, in our society, we probably have, I don't know, about 15 to 20 verses of a motivational speech. That God's supposed to pump you up and lift you up and give you all kinds of wonderful just affirmation and affirmative words that say, you can do it, you can do it. But God said, guess what, Moses? It ain't about you. It's not about you. I don't know if you guys saw in the news this week, there was an article about a Jewish school in New York. It's a boys' Jewish school. And the parents were sent home a letter from the principal superintendent of the school, along with report cards. And what the letter basically said was, hey, Mom and Dad, this is your report card on little Johnny. But if you don't want to share the report card because it's not that good, and you want us to come up with a second report card that has better grades on it, and you can share that with Johnny so you can help build him up, let us know. We'll come up with one for you. Here's a perfect example that God says, it's not about you. And sometimes life is tough. And the only way that you get tougher is you take your eyes off yourself, you stop looking in the mirror, and you look ahead. You look up. And you see Him. And He says, I will be with you. He doesn't say, hey, you can do this. I believe in you. I made you. You're a great guy. He doesn't say that. He says, I will be with you, and this will be the sign that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on the mountain. It's not a pep talk, people. But then Moses doubles down. And I know I've done this. He says, yeah, but suppose I go to them and I say, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what's his name? Then what should I tell them? Again, Gospel according to JR. I think Moses says, really? You want me to go do this? Okay, I got a question for you. Who do you think you are? Does that sound familiar to anybody? I know it does to me. And again, God says, I am. I am who I am. You can trust me. I will be there. Again, God says, this is not about you. I have stood by my people from the beginning to the end. I stood by Abraham. I stood by Isaac. I stood by Jacob. And what he says to you is, I stood by Moses. I stood by David. I stood by Peter. I stood by Paul. I stood by Timothy. And I stood by my son, Jesus Christ. Guess what? I will stand by you. I will stand by you. Because you know what? It's not about you. In the end, God says very simply, here's the end result, guy. Just go. Just go. There's some back and forth. I'm not going to belabor the point, but God says, Moses, trust me. This isn't about you. I need you to put one foot in front of the other and take that first step. In what? Faith. That's what I need. So let's fast forward now. Now we're at the Red Sea. So he goes to Egypt. He gets the people out. He beats Pharaoh down. God does, through Moses. Pharaoh finally says, okay, enough's enough. Leave. Get out of here. Take them all. Leave. So now we're at the Red Sea. So flip forward. Chapter 14. They're standing at the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army is behind them. They're coming to kill them. The Red Sea's in front of them. Literally an ocean's in front of them. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I got 3 cars with 800,000 miles. I got a 2000 Chevy Suburban with 402,000 miles on it. It's on its 3rd transmission. This is the noise coming out of the back of the Suburban right now. At this pace. Constantly. constant. There's a little flap on the back air conditioner that doesn't work anymore that decided last week to start trying to open and close. So when I get home this afternoon, guess what I get to do? Rip the back panel off the Suburban and disconnect that stupid thing so it will stop driving me up a wall. Luckily, I don't drive that car a whole lot. My youngest daughter does. I got a 2009 Ford Escape. It's got 299,862 miles when I came out of the driveway yesterday in it. It's never had anything done but oil changed and tires changed. That's it. I got an ocean in front of me because I know that any day now, one of those is going to die. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And that's the least of the issues that I know that you guys are probably dealing with and I'm dealing with. But to me, it's an ocean. But he's standing there. And he's wondering, where do we go from here? And he's got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people standing behind him that are saying, what? What have you done? They're not cheering him on. They're not saying, we believe in you. Come on, Moses, you can do this. God has used you to do unbelievable things. He used you to get us away from this oppressive guy. I know that he's got some great plan. Come on, show us. They're not doing that. They're saying what only the people that love us can say to us sometimes. What are you doing? Look what you did. You brought us out here to die. What were we thinking following you? Does that sound familiar? Guys, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I am the people in the crowd. I'm not always the best cheerleader in my house for my girls. And if there's anything that a girl needs, and I say girl, and I'm not only talking about my little girl, I'm talking about my wife. If there's anything they need an unbelievable strong man that will live his life on their knees for them, lifting them up to God, being the priest, prophet, protector, and provider for them. Letting them know that they can do anything, because they're there to cover them. And guys, I don't know if I can say this in here. Yeah, I can. Jeremy said worse than this. I suck at that sometimes. I just do. It's almost like I sit on the side of the sofa sometimes going, okay, come on, mess up so I can point it out so that I don't have to feel so bad about who I am sometimes. Well, what we should be doing is sitting there with our arms wide open, because that's what our Father does for us. But we tend to be the crowd of Israelites. That's what we do. And what do you think's going through Moses' mind? I got to tell you, I don't care what you think, but I don't think Moses is sitting here thinking, let me tell you what's going to happen, okay? This whole sea's going to part open. Let me tell you what's getting ready to happen. Something unprecedented in the history of mankind. We're going to defy the laws of gravity and everything else. That's what's getting ready to happen. Stand back, watch this. He's not thinking that. He's not. You know what he's thinking? Here we go again. Doubt, question, I told you so. You picked the wrong guy. Verse 13. Moses answered the people, do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring to you this day. The Egyptians you see today you will never see them again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff. Stretch your hand out over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. Raise raise your staff. Let me digress for just a minute. I spent 20 years of my life in corporate America. My dad was a mechanic. I went to work with my dad for an entire summer when I was 13 years old. I was an okay student. I wasn't a great student. I was good at one thing. I was good at cracking jokes. I was good at sarcasm. I was the class clown. I was good at getting in trouble. Not bad trouble, just popping off my mouth all the time. I didn't fight a lot. I just made fun of people, including my teachers. So I got in trouble a lot. 13 years old, my dad took me to work with him. South Texas heat, June. Every single day. Working on cars with him. After about 3 days of that, I decided, I don't want to do this for a living. This is hot. This is hard work. I better learn to be a better student because I got to go to school and work in a place where an air conditioner's on all day long because I don't like this. So I did. In what I've done my whole life, I've worked in corporate sales and I've worked in corporate training. And I've worked my tail off. Because I always have been a realist. I've never lied to myself about how good I am at what I do. But what I've always felt is that there's people smarter out there doing what I do for a living. There's people out there that have more resources doing what I do for a living. But the one thing I could control was I could always say the list of people that will outwork me is real short. I will work when they don't want to. I will do the things that they don't want to do, and I will bust my rear end because you know what? If it is up to be, if it is to be, it is what? Up to me. And I would work, and I would work, and I would work. And every time my back was against the wall, my answer was very simple. Work more. Work harder. And each time God would show up and He would show me and He would say something like, son, it ain't about you. It's not about you. Trust me. Get out of the way. And I would for a little while. The year was 2006. We had moved out to East Texas in 2005. I owned a company. We were doing well. We were entrenched in a great church. I was teaching an adult Sunday school class. I was singing with a group by the name of the Crossmen. It was a great singing gig. It was probably the best singing gig I ever had in my life. I sang lead. I cracked jokes. That was it. That was my job. I didn't have to count money. I didn't have to negotiate money. I didn't have to book deals. I didn't minister. I sang and I cracked jokes. That was it. It was great. I had a business. Business was going well. Cindy was teaching a Sunday school class. I had two beautiful little girls. We were homeschooling our kids. We were doing all the things right. If you looked at us from the outside, the picture was really pretty good. But everything that's going on the surface is not always what's going on underneath when you peel that onion back just a little bit. Everybody in here is dealing with something. That's something you're dealing with. Your wife or your husband might know what it is. But there's a pretty high likelihood that they don't. They may not know exactly what it is. Your mom or dad may not know exactly what it is. Your grandma or grandpa may not know exactly what it is. But I'm telling you right now, they know it's something. Because they are in tune with your heart. And in 2006, my wife knew that there was some crud going on in my life. I won't go into a lot of details, but I was struggling with a lot of demons that I'd had in my past. And they still try to rear their heads today in my current state. Because Satan knows where those ugly, dark corners are. And Satan loves hanging out in the dark. And whenever you take those sins and you put them in those closets that you don't think anybody knows about, I'm telling you right now, God knows they're there and Satan knows they're there. And Satan loves the dark. And until you shine the light on those things, he will continue to hang out And he will lurk, and he will do everything he can to say, you're not good enough because you still got this. You still got that. Cindy's prayer at that time was, whatever it takes, Father. Whatever it takes. Whatever has to happen. And he took my business, took pretty much almost everything that we had. Until one day, I was on the side of our house. We had 2 huge oak trees. We had a hammock between those 2 oak trees. And I would go sit in that hammock, and I would read God's Word. And I would read the Psalm, because there were so many things that I felt that David felt. And I came to Psalm 51. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion. Blot out my transgressions, wash away all my iniquities, and cleanse me from my sin. Cleanse me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Let me hear the joy and gladness, your joy and gladness. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. Then I will teach transgressors your ways, and sinners will turn back to you. O Lord, open my lips, and my mouth will declare your praise. You see, at this point, it was all up to me. It was my hard work, it was my success, it was my ability to pull myself out. But at that point, I finally realized that I was not doing what God wanted me to do. I wasn't where God wanted me to be, and I was taking a lot of shortcuts to get where I was. I knew a lot of answers that were in here. I was singing about God every weekend, 2, 3, 4 times a weekend. I was teaching Sunday school class. I had great head knowledge. But this does nothing for you if you don't get it in here and make it heart knowledge. God said to me, son, raise up your staff. Get some skin in the game. God didn't need Moses to raise his staff. God didn't need Moses to take a step and start walking towards Egypt. But he wanted Moses to have skin in the game. He wanted Moses to have a little bit of something to lose. But he also wanted Moses to have faith. God needs one thing from you. One. Just one thing. It's the same thing that he needed from Jonah. Because if you read the message that Jonah preached in the book of Jonah, it is the absolute worst message ever preached in the history of mankind. Turn from your wicked ways, repent, go back to God, or you'll all be dead. And an entire city turned back to God. God could have used anybody else. He chose Jonah. God could have used anyone else, but he chose Moses. He can use anyone else to do what it is that he has for you to do, but he chooses you. And he chooses me. But the only way that he can use us is, guys, we got to show up. We got to be willing to lift up our rod and take a step. The only way things are going to change is you've got to be willing to do something different. So if you're going to sit here and you're going to start continuing to cry about your financial circumstances when you're not willing to go work at McDonald's to pay bills and make ends meet, stop your crying. You can ask God to fix your broken marriage. But if you're not willing to give up your Saturdays that you're going to ride horses or play golf with your buddies, or the Tuesday night poker game that's taking you away from your wife, if you're not willing to spend time on your knees with your wife, holding her hand and carrying her knees before the Father, stop your belly aching. If you're not willing to stop eating at McDonald's and giving up all the crud that you're putting in your mouth, don't cry to him about your weight and your health. When he said treat your body as a temple, he didn't mean a mega church. But if we're not willing to change, we got to have skin in the game, guys. He'll split the waters of your ocean that you're facing, but he needs you to lift your rod and trust him. He needs you to put your toes in the water. He will cover every single one of your enemies with that flood, just like he did the Egyptians. But he has got to have you have skin in the game. So let me make a couple of points here just real quick. God wants you to trust that he's got you covered. He wants you to leave your comfort zone. He wants you to step away from your 40 years of hiding, your 40 years of running, your 40 years of self-doubt. He wants you to stop making excuses. And I'm the king of excuses. If I can't make an excuse, then I will come up with a joke to cover it. He is ready to deliver you from the things that torment you, the things that cause you stress and strife. But you've got to be willing to step out. You sit there and say, how do you know that he can do this? You don't know what I got. You don't know what I'm carrying. You don't know the stuff that's in my bag. See, because my crud is worse than your crud. God is the maker and the perfecter of DNA. He is the only one that can change miraculously the DNA. Bruce Jenner can decide he wants to be Caitlyn Jenner, but until he dies, he is still Bruce Jenner. Period. Only God has the ability to change your life. He's the God of my fathers. He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Joshua. He is the God that will stand with you through every trial that you're dealing with. He's the God that stood with his son through the torment and the beating and the torture and the mocking at the cross. He is, as he says in Exodus 3, the great I am. He's not the I was. He is the I am. So when you put that in front of the things that he has given you the ability to do, what do you have? I am capable. I am cleansed. I am redeemed. I am restored. I am perfect in all of my imperfections. I'm completed. I'm a good father. I'm a good friend. I'm a good husband. I'm a good dad. With him, fear, doubt, pain, guilt, shame, all that crud in your life, the things that frustrate you, they're gone. Is it like rubbing a genie bottle and it all goes away today? No, it's not. But it's leaving it at the cross. It's calling out to him. It's taking your rod and it's lifting it up. He needs you to stop arguing. He needs you to stop making excuses. He needs you to stop running. He needs you to stop telling him that he's got the wrong guy. There are ministries in this church that need you. We're so good in the body of Christ at sitting back and talking about the things that are wrong with our church, the things that aren't done right, the things that could be done better, but we never are willing to step up and say, how can I fix it? I coached girls softball for years, and one of the things that would drive me crazy is we'd be in a game or we'd be in practice and a ball would go between two girls. They'd be running to catch the ball as fast as they can, and then both of them would kind of hold up and it'd fall right in the middle of them. And I'm not talking just little 8-year-old girls, I'm talking all the way to 17, 18 years old. Several years ago, I was coaching my daughter's team, and so what happened? Why didn't you catch it? I thought somebody else was going to get it. That's what we do in church. So several years ago, coaching my daughter's team, we were practicing inside, weather was bad. We get to the gym, and I had a box. And I put the box in the middle of the gym floor, and I wrote somebody else. I said, come on guys, we're going to have a funeral today. Funeral, yeah. We lost a teammate today. Somebody else died. So you can no longer depend on somebody else to catch that ball. You can no longer depend on somebody else to get that hit. You can no longer depend on somebody else to get that out. Because somebody else is dead. They're gone. So we took it outside, I dug a hole, I put that box in the hole, we buried it, and I said, somebody else is gone. So now you're the one that has to catch the ball. You're the one that has to get the hit. And church is the exact same way. Somebody else doesn't go to church here. God put you here and you here for a reason. Stop making excuses. Here's what I want you to do. God is talking to you this morning. He's talking to me. He's been talking to me all week about this. And what he wants us to do is he wants us to get right up to the edge of our deepest, darkest waters. Those things in our life that scare us to death. The secrets that nobody knows about. And you know what they are. And he wants you to deal with them. And he says, I'm going to go with you. I won't leave you there. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know what to say. I will give you the words to say. Just lift up your rod. Just put your toes in the water. Just trust that I'm there for you because I am. So we're going to do something a little different this morning. I'm not going to ask you to come forward. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to stand with me. If you could stand up, please. I'm going to ask you just to close your eyes. And I got some questions for you as you sit there and have some time with God. Are you tired of running? Are you tired of hiding? Are you tired of wondering where you belong? Are you exhausted and are you tired of carrying all that baggage by yourself? Are you tired of running from that dark place that you run from for so long that it's just become a part of who you are? You've done it for 40 years like Moses did, and then you've done it for another 40 years in the desert. I promise that he wants to do for you what he did for Moses, what he's done for me, and what he continues to do for people around you. Because he is the great I am. But I need you to lift your rod. I need you to put your toes in the water. I need you to be willing to say, Father, I trust you. This morning, if you're one of those folks that are tired, that you're weary, and you just want to lay it down and walk across dry ground, show them this morning by taking just a small step forward in your aisle. When you take that step, if you believe that God is the answer, and you've never, ever said, Father, I can't carry it anymore. I need to let go. I need you in my heart. With every head bowed and every eye closed, if you need him in your life this morning, raise your hand. Just throw it up. I see you. I see you. I see you. Thank you. Put your hand down. Thank you. Thank you. Just pray this prayer with me. Father, I can't do this alone. Father, I'm broken and I'm tired. And this morning, Father, I lay all of this at the cross through your Son, Jesus Christ. Father, I am a sinner, and I need the cleansing blood of your Son to wash my heart clean, Father. Father, come into my heart. Make my heart your home. In your Son's name I pray. If you're here this morning and God does live in your heart, but you haven't been living the life that you want to live, and you just want to say, Father, today is the day I draw a line in the sand. I put a stake in the ground and I say, today is the day that I change. Today is the day that I stop thinking that it's up to me and I understand, Father, that you are in control. If that's you, just throw your hand up real quick. Let me pray for you. I see your hand. I see it. I see your hand. Thank you. Father, you know the needs and the hearts of every single person that raised their hand here just now. And you know, Father, that sometimes we lose our way. But Father, right now I pray that you will take it, you will light a fire in their heart, Father, for you. That you will bring them back on the path, Father, that you have destined for them from the beginning. Because you have a plan and a purpose. Forgive us, Father, when we step away from that plan. Thank you, Father, for your grace and your mercy that lets us come right back in line with that. So, Father, for those hands that came up just now, I just ask, God, that you walk with each and every one of them. That you create a fire in their heart that burns only for you and is only quenched when they spend time with you, seeking your face. Father, we've all got dark secrets, and I pray that you break the chains of those addictions, whether it's work, pornography, drug, alcohol, infidelity, feeling of inadequacies, Father, letting Satan get a foothold in our life. Whatever it is, Father, we're tired of those things. Break those chains that weigh us down, Father. I believe in you, Father, and I believe in the great I am. And Father, we pray all of this in your Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen. Thank you guys for letting me spend time with you this morning. If you raised your hand, you've got a great leadership team of pastors. Chris is here. Find somebody and let them know, I made a decision today. I made a decision to live for Christ. I made a decision to get my life back in line with Him because I'm going to raise my staff and I'm going to step out in the water and I'm going to begin to live for the great I am because I'm not going to let Satan hold me back anymore. God has a plan and a purpose. Believe in that plan. Believe in that purpose. Believe in Him. And He will lead you to it. Thank you, guys.